Yep, I got the flag. Would you join me in the pledge allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to George W. Norris Legislative Chamber for the 51st day of the 106th Legislature, first session. Our chaplain today is Senator Williams. Would you please rise?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back from the weekend. I was thinking this weekend after everything that happened last week about how we need to create a better environment in here. And one of my favorite people to read about and listen to is Gordon Sumner, and he wrote an interesting line back in the Cold War days of the 1980s that there's no monopoly on common sense on either side of the political fence. We share the same biology, regardless of our ideology. And then I have to change this a little bit. Believe me when I say to you, I hope all of us love our children too. Would you please join me in prayer? Dear Lord, we thank you for this day and all days. We pray that you will open our eyes so that we can see all sides of every issue. We pray that you will open our ears to help us listen intently to all viewpoints. And I pray that you would help us open our minds to find true solutions to the issues that face us. During this period of Lent, we are mindful of the grace that is given to us by you. Help each one of us to use that given grace to listen, to hear, and to be mindful of others. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Senator Williams. I call to order the 51st day of the 106th Legislature, first session. Senators, would you please record your presence? Roll call. Mr. Clerk, please record.
I have a quorum present, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any corrections for the journal?
I have no corrections.
Are there any messages, reports, or announcements?
Just one item, Mr. President. The Committee on Agriculture, chaired by Senator Holleran, reports legislative bill 657 to general file with committee amendments attached. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The first item.
Thanks.
While the legislature is in session and capable of transacting business, I propose to sign and hereby sign LR 49, LR 50, LR 51, LR 52, LR 53, LR 54, LR 55, LR 56, and LR 58. Mr. Clerk, first item.
Mr. President, confirmation reports. The first by the Education Committee involves 3 appointments to the Nebraska Educational Telecommunications Commission.
Senator Groney, as chair, you're welcome to open.
Thank you, Mr. President. These appointments are to the Nebraska Educational Telecommunication Commission, NETC, commonly known as NET. NETC was established in 1963 for the Educational Television Act. The purpose of the commissions are to promote and establish NET facilities, provide NET programs, and operate educational public radio and TV networks. This is an 11-member commission, and the appointed members serve a term of 4 years. We have 3 appointments. Greg Adams is appointed for the first time as the community college representative on the commission. Mr. Adams currently is the executive director of the Nebraska Community College Association, and prior to that was a state senator and speaker of the legislature. He was also a teacher for many years at the York Public Schools. Dr. Paul Thurman is appointed for the first time as a state college representative on the commission and recently was selected as chancellor of the Nebraska State College System in January this year. Dr. Thurman received his PhD from UNL and was most recently the assistant vice president for academic affairs for the Board of Regents in South Dakota. Third, and finally, Patricia Kirscher is a reappointment and represents one of 6 members of the general public representing the 2nd Congressional District. This would be her 3rd term on the commission. Ms. Kirscher is originally from New York and has experience in sales and marketing. She has volunteered for several organizations, is also very involved in the Millard Public School community. The Education Committee advanced these nominations from committee with a vote of 7 ayes and 1 absent. I would appreciate a green vote on the governor's appointments. They're good people who have volunteered their time to the state of Nebraska. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Groney. Going to discussion. Senator Wayne, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will Senator Groney yield to some questions?
Senator Groney, would you please yield?
Yes.
Senator Groney, what vetting process does your committee use to vet these individual appointments?
The legislature relies on the governor's staff and to vet them and then to decide who those appointments are. We confirm them. It's a process that if something comes up in between, nothing did. These are very good people, and they deserve the courtesy to be affirmed. Thank you.
So is it safe to say that you don't check social media, you don't Google to see if there's anything out there this body should be aware of before voting on?
No, I rely on the committee to bring any of the members if they have a concern, and my staff, and I rely on the public to second house. We have proponents, opponents, and neutral testimony on the confirmations. If anybody has a concern, and by the way, nobody opposed these appointments. Thank you.
And do you know why they're asking for budget increases? Was that discussed at all?
No.
Was there any conversation about future programming and what each individual person wants to do as it relates to the future of NETV and NETV radio?
I think there was consensus that the commission does a very good job at present.
So do you feel that because the governor appoints and has a vetting process, we should abstain from our rules and regs that say that we should consent or at least confirm these individuals and not do any independent research ourselves?
I assume we got 49 independent senators and 8 members of the committee. I'm assuming they do research on legislation before they vote yes or no or for appointments. I trust their abilities.
So if someone did have a Facebook post or something that would be somewhat deemed inappropriate, would you vote against them or would you pull their name? How would this committee work? How would you go back and vet them more?
Never had to do it. Never had the clerk's office explain to me that anybody has had to do it in the past. And I'm not going to answer questions on suppositions and maybes and a personal opinion of what's inappropriate.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking how would your committee handle how would you handle if something came out on the floor today that would cause some concern about any individual appointment?
I would let the body debate it.
You would let the body debate it, but you don't feel as a committee chair that you have any obligation to make sure that the person before this body is vetted?
I am not going to prejudge somebody until it's debated, until I see the evidence.
And you have already stated, just for the record, I'm just trying to make sure I understand this, that it is not your role as a committee to vet these individuals.
But the vetting has been done by the governor.
So you just are voting yes because the governor told you to vote yes?
Unless something comes up in testimony. We have a good system. As I said, anybody can come into the hearing and be an opponent, a proponent, or neutral. We rely on that system.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about the education telecommunication system itself. What is your understanding of the Nebraska Education Telecommunication Commission?
That it oversees Nebraska's educational television network.
What would you like to see in the future as it relates to this Nebraska educational telecommunication programming and what they do? What would you like to see going forward?
I think they are leaders nationally in that, and I trust their judgment. They're nationally known as the leaders in public education through telecommunication.
Do you think rural Nebraska needs more access to this information?
We are very well covered.
So they don't need any more access to this information?
They're very well covered.
Okay. And so do you think there needs to be any different or new programming? I want to get your opinion on the future of this commission.
I think they're doing a fine job.
And would you be okay if we split this vote into each 3 votes instead of having them all as one? If I want to divide the question?
Time, senators.
If you want to waste time,
Time, senators. Thank you, Senator Wayne and Senator Groney. Senator Wayne, you're recognized.
Thank you. Will Senator Groney yield to some questions?
Senator Groney, would you continue to yield, please?
yes.
So would you be okay with dividing the question and voting on these individually?
No, because we have work to do. I'll vote against it. You can do it. That's your right to do that. But personally, I will vote no.
So when the governor puts a slate together, we should just vote it through without voting on them individually and vetting them individually, correct?
It's done all the time on this floor.
Do you think that's right?
If they're good candidates,
But you only know if they're a good candidate because you independently verified.
don't put words in my mouth.
I'm asking you.
No
Did you-
answer.
Did you
It's
independently?
redundant questions. I've already answered it, Senator Wayne. No more. This isn't a courtroom.
So I'm just having a dialogue. I can ask somebody else of your committee.
Would you
if that's
ask
what
somebody else on the committee and find out what their vetting process was? Because I've told you mine.
Okay, but you're the chair, and so what comes out of this should be just like when we write a bill. If a bill is poorly written, they look to the chair to how come they let a bill that's poorly written out of a committee. So you're the chair of this committee.
And I think we did an excellent job.
But you didn't tell me what that vetting process looked like. You didn't tell me.
I didn't tell you about people can come in, the public can come in as proponents, opponents, or neutral. Did I not say that? That is called a vetting process.
But you didn't, so anybody, your staff, you didn't have them look and see if there was anything on social media or anything like that? We just took the governor for his word?
My staff jokingly said that they would do it, and they never referred back to me that they found anything
Okay.
because of what happened in another committee.
So I will, if somebody else is in the queue, I will divide the question, and I will make that motion to divide the question. I think it's important that we vote on individuals individually when they come before the from this body, and if there is a conversation, we should discuss it. I would like to know a little bit more about Patricia's role on the State Fair Board, and I know the State Fair Board has had its ups and downs, and I would like to know how they handle that before we put them on another commission. I think that's a fair question, and I think from what I'm hearing, you don't have an answer because that wasn't asked in a committee and that wasn't vetted. So with that, I hope somebody else is in the queue so I can file this motion to divide the question, and we can vote on these individuals individually. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wayne and Senator Groney. Senator Chambers, you're recognized.
Thank you. Members, Mr. President, members of the legislature, anybody can ask for a division of the question, and it doesn't have to be a motion. If the question can be divided, in other words, the way that it is to be divided, each of the divisions can stand alone, the question will be divided. There is no vote on whether or not the question will be divided. I would like to make a few comments while that issue gets worked out. We're into all-day sessions now. It can be part 2, Roman numeral 2. I had stated, while certain so-called conservatives talked until the time ran out on bills, that they were showing me the rules according to which we will conduct the session. I have repeated over and over that all I need to do is be made aware of what the rules are, and I will play by those rules. So I expect that there will be bills which I ordinarily wouldn't have that much interest in that will require some measure of discussion and debate. That is necessary because of the rule that was set by the majority in the first part of the session. We are going to see now whether those who are dictated to by the governor are going to continue following his lead, and if he will bail them out and show the legislature how to get out of the morass that his leadership has put it in. He's not going to do that because his will has been worked so far. But there are some bills that those who spoke long and windily about earlier will be interested in. For example, so-called property tax relief. I say so-called because there is so much confusion in the Revenue Committee that I'm not sure what is going to come out on the floor. I have received correspondence from various groups which could be referred to as interest groups, such as business persons, landowners, homeowners, and others who could fit under the rubric of property tax payer. You will see during this phase of the session that my voice will be very moderated, very calm, because now you're in my territory. You have given me the second half of the session. New people don't know what that means. Older ones who've been here think that because I'm a year older than I was last year, I will forget how to do what it is that I've done during the time I've been in the legislature. I can discuss any issue that comes before us, whether it's a confirmation, whether it's a bill, whether it's a motion, whether it's an amendment, makes no difference. I've also emphasized that when I come here for a short session, which is 60 days, I'm prepared to talk those 60 days about whatever is discussed. But something will be discussed, and I'll be party to those in which I have an interest. During the 90-day session, which is where we are now, there are things that will be discussed, And since I'm going to
1
be
minute.
involved in the discussions, I will discuss things that I choose to discuss. And we are going to take time on all of the issues that come before us. I am able to do that alone, and I'm not saying that I will discuss every issue that comes up for the 3 opportunities that I have. I'm not saying that I won't do that. I'm not saying that I will have motions and amendments to offer on bills and amendments to amendments, but I'm not saying that I won't do that. I believe, brothers and sisters, that when the chair says 1 minute, we ought to start winding down. I heard those words, so I will stop and turn my light on again. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Senator Wayne, you're recognized.
Yes, I would like to divide the question.
It's the ruling of the chair that there are 3 independent individuals and easily dividable, so it is granted. They are now in 3 individual confirmation reports.
And do I get to keep talking or not?
Yes. You
So
have
I won't take up the full
4
time. In no way am I trying to take this 3 hours and make an education report become 33 hours, if that's possible. But I do, this is not part of my strategy. I told what my strategy was last week, what bills I was attacking, and what bills we're going to have extended debate on. This is not one of them. But as we get later down through these confirmations, there is somebody that we need to talk about. We need to have a great deal of this conversation about because of what I've seen. And so I thought I would start early and show my hand and give people information that we're going to have some problems with one of these individuals on this slate. And it's going to be an extended conversation. And that may go all the way till noon if it means. But I wanted to be clear that I am going to read every bill that comes before this committee, particularly the ones that I have identified, and we were going to spend extended debate on them. This is not one of them, so there won't be an extended debate on it, but there will be a close reading. And one of them, of these reports before us today, has significant issues, in my opinion, and why I can't support one of them. And that will be raised, and we'll see if that lives or fails on this floor. With that, I yield the rest of my time to Senator Chambers.
Senator Chambers, 320.
Thank you. Members of the legislature, Mr. Chairman, and to the chaplain of the day, Senator Williams, who had some very fine words that he uttered. But whenever people get up there to pray, they utter fine words. He prayed to one in whom he believes. I believe that Senator Williams believes in the one he says he believes in. That does not mean that I believe in the one he says he believes in. Each one of us is an individual. Each of us has distinctive DNA. We all are identifiable by our fingerprints, which, from the information we've been given, are not duplicated by anybody else. So we each will have distinguishing characteristics that will separate us from every other human being. Now, when you get into philosophy, you talk about things that are, that's the existential world. You talk about things that are theoretical or perhaps may exist. The fact that you do not know, based on experience or observation, that they exist does not mean they do not exist. It could simply mean that your knowledge is limited. I probably am the only person in the universe, and if there are other universes, in those universes, I don't know whether there can be more than one universe. I don't know if there is a boundary around this universe of which we are a part as dwellers on the planet Earth, which is a part of the solar system, which in turn is a part of a universe, whether there is just one universe without boundaries. In other words, infinite. There is no beginning,
1 minute.
no end. Since there are no boundaries, there can be no center. There can be no outposts. Everything is what it is. Everything is where it is. And when it comes to motion, no object has motion with reference to itself. Motion exists only in relationship to some other object. Either they are close to each other, they are far from each other. If they move closer, that movement is described as motion. If they go away from each other, that movement is described as motion. One is receding, and I'm not going to tell you what the other one is. You need to have some things not given to you so that life will have that spice, which makes life worth living. If every second of every minute of every hour of every day of every week
Time,
of
Senator.
every month. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wayne and Senator Chambers. Senator Albright would like to recognize Dr. David Holding of Pender, who's serving as the family physician of the day. He is seated under the north balcony. Would you please stand and be recognized? As I previously noted, we have broken the confirmation into 3 separate hearings. The first one is that we shall take up is Greg Adams. So the discussion at this point is in regards to Greg Adams. Senator Chambers, you're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. President, we are having so much fun this morning already. There is an expression I've heard which I have never applied to myself because I did not know from experience the meaning of it. That expression is happy as a clam. Now, I don't know why in the world a clam would be happy. I don't know how in the world any human being can determine the different moods of a clam. I have yet to read anything by any human being based on a period of time that that human being spent with a clam to observe that clam in different circumstances, and by giving to the clam, projecting on the clam, emotions that human beings, when they behave a certain way in a certain set of circumstances, the human being who is having this relationship with the clam concluded therefrom that this clam in these circumstances behaves in the way that I would behave were I a clam, or if clams react to circumstances in the way that a human being reacts. Therefore, this clam is happy. That person then did not want to seem foolish, that he had so much time on his hands and so little to do that he would spend it fellowshipping with a clam. So in one of his soirees, well, let me keep it simple. We're legislators. We don't have to read literature. We don't have to understand literature. We don't even have to be able to read. We can be totally illiterate. We don't have to know how to write. That causes me to digress from my dissertation on the happiness of a clam, which I am experiencing at this point. There was a movie in which Ossie Davis, his name is spelled O-S-S-I-E, played a slave to this white guy. And this white guy was taking him across the country. And for those who know any history, no matter where a slave set foot in the land of the free and the home of the brave, he was a slave. And he had no rights which any white man was bound to respect. And that was pronounced by Roman Catholic Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, Roger B. Taney. A Roman Catholic said that. He was familiar with the Catholic doctrines, the notion of human dignity. God that the Catholics believed in, the Catholic God created everybody. The Catholic God imbued everybody with a soul. That soul, according to what the Catholic God dictates, should not be defiled in any way by any person, even the possessor of that soul which the Catholic God says exists. And you know that because the Catholic fathers of the church told you that. Thomas Aquinas was one of them. These men were given highfalutin, high-sounding names. Thomas Aquinas was referred to as the angelic doctor, the seraphic doctor, because he could string words together and do things with Latin which few others could do.
1 minute.
So, when Ossie Davis was a slave and would always be a slave based on what the Roman Catholic Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court said, I heard the words 1 minute. I'll stop and turn on my light. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. And you're next in the queue. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have been given inspiration. It's streaming to me now. Clams exist. Clams exist, and clams communicate with human beings, and clams know when they're being discussed because a clam just sent a message to me. Happy as a clam at high tide. How many of you all knew that? See, I brought you some information about the clams. I would know a clam if I saw one. People talk about having clammy hands. I suspect that clams don't have hands, but they might. But anyway, back to Ossie Davis. I was talking about how we don't have to know how to read or write. White people didn't have to know how to read or write during the period after slavery, but black people did. And white people, just being white, were allowed to vote. We would have to write certain provisions of the Constitution. We would have to be able to tell, without having had a chance to study it, how many window panes there are in the courthouse. That's what white people did to us in the land of the free and the home of the brave under that rag. That's what was happening to us. You can worship the flag. It means something to you because it puts you in the position of the slaveholder. Although I was on the same plantation, the flag flew over me like it flew over you, but I did not see it the way you saw it. The mere fact that we occupied the same terrain did not mean that we viewed it the same way. For you who have never been a slave or had ancestors who were slaves, you have no concept of what it means to be treated like an object, a cow, a pig, or a chicken, and in fact have less rights, fewer rights than a cow, a pig, or a chicken, and they think I ought to praise that rag. They must be out of their mind or think I'm out of mine. And I'll say as I've said before, when you can get Jews to praise the swastika, you'll get me to praise that, but actually you won't. Those will be some Jews who've lost their mind. And I will not follow somebody who's walked into insanity. But Ossie Davis had had as much as he could take, and he told this white man who the Constitution and the Catholic Chief Justice said was his master, you can't even write your name, and you wouldn't recognize it if somebody wrote it for you. And a white man rising up in his majestic indignation as a member of the master race, I can't write my name, and I can't recognize it when it's written for me, but I can take this whip, I can take this cowhide, and I can whoop every strip of flesh off your back. And Ossie Davis looked at him. He said, Master, that you may do. But after you've done it, you still cannot write your name and would not recognize it if somebody wrote it for you. And that's what I say. White people have had it easy. Clams, as far as I know, have never been enslaved. So maybe I need to learn something about pure happiness from a clam, which has never been enslaved and never has enslaved. Because whatever happiness is to a clam at high tide, it is not diluted or polluted by the concept of slavery.
1 minute.
Of course, the clam is preyed upon by human beings who must prey upon everything they come in contact with it. Kill it for the love of killing. Kill it so you can put its hide on a door. Kill it so you can put its head on a wall. And you are the master race. You are the master race. You're fortunate that I don't use the language of your president, because he used the BS word, and he used it, and those white racists applauded and cheered him. Suppose I would use the BS word here. Would you all applaud me as your president was applauded? Would you be outraged at me while you're not outraged at your president? If I referred to America as an S-hole nation, as he referred to Africa and Haiti, would you be offended at that because I said it when your white president said it, and I'm not supposed to be offended because you're not?
Time, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Senator Colderman, you're recognized.
Good morning, colleagues. I rise in support of the confirmation of Greg Adams to the education position that he's seeking. Greg Adams has served this legislature well for 8 years. Prior to that, he served as a wonderful teacher in the York Public Schools, and better than that, he comes from District 24. I'd like to see that we could get this approved today, move forward. Appreciate your support for Greg Adams. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Colderman. Senator Howard, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I would echo Senator Colterman's comments. I had the privilege of serving here for 2 years with Speaker Adams, and he was a wonderful speaker, especially when I was a first-year senator. He would bring all of the first-year senators in and have lunch with us and ask us about how things were going. And then he was really good about just checking in and making sure that we understood the process and we understood what was happening on the floor. He was a really wonderful speaker and a very capable colleague, and I would certainly urge his adoption and the adoption of his confirmation this morning. I would also note he was the speaker who followed Mike Flood, and he really carried on a lot of those important traditions that Mike Flood had put in place. I think one of the challenges of being speaker or a leader in the body is ensuring that there's some stability in this legislature, and so making sure that essentially the trains run on time. And he was a wonderful mentor and a wonderful speaker in this body, and so I would urge his confirmation today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Howard. Senator McAllister, you're recognized. There is still one in the queue, and she has not spoken. Senator McAllister, we've only been talking for about 20 minutes on this, so I would say that we have not had full and fair debate on this at this point. Senator Kavanaugh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise in support of Greg Adams. I've had the privilege of working with him in his capacity of representing the community colleges in this state, and he has been of significant support to me in my legislation to make sure that we have safe campuses in the state of Nebraska. And considering that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, I think it's important to bring that up and highlight the significance and the contribution Mr. Adams has made to making our campuses, both community colleges and state and university across the state, safe for all students. Thank you, Mr. President. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Seeing no one else wishing to speak on this portion, Senator Groney, you're welcome to close on Senator Adams' confirmation. He waives the closing. The question before us is confirmation of Greg Adams. Those in favor, please vote aye. Those opposed, vote nay. Have you all voted that wish to? Please record.
41 ayes, no nays on adoption of the confirmation report with respect to Greg Adams.
The report is adopted. Moving to the second of the divided question is the question in regards to Patricia Kircher. That confirmation is now open for discussion. Seeing none, Senator Groney, you're welcome to close. Excuse me, Senator Chambers, your light is on. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the legislature. Think of that rhyme called The Visit from St. Nicholas. It was not the night before Christmas, but that is the beginning. And it starts with, I'm not sure if "twas" is a contraction. I suppose it is because two words are put together, but the apostrophe comes before the first one, and then its second letter is added to the second word, and we get "'twas." 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care and hope that St. Nicholas soon would be there. Ma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. That's what I was wanting to get to, a long winter's nap. This is not going to be winter, and it may be long, and some of you may be napping. Had just settled our brains for a long winter nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutter, threw open the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday. Midday is noon. The moon was so bright at night, it made it look like daytime. A luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a sleigh full of toys and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. Now that's something that we all were told about when we were younger. I said all of that to put a long winter's nap into the context of my discussions today, and however many days I choose to do so. And I assure you, I will not run out of things to say. I'm fascinated by everything. I know everybody is aware of this. 26 letters in the English alphabet. Z, Y, X, W, V, U, T, S, R, Q, P, O, N, M, L, K, J, I, H, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. 26. Yet all of the words in all of the books written in English, except where they interpolate words and expressions and phrases from other languages, were birthed from those 26 letters. The numbers of combinations may be verging on the intimate. I said intimate. Who caught it? If I had written it, you'd know that I meant infinite. But I want the record to be clear. So I can find words, appropriate words, that are relevant to anything that we discuss here today, tomorrow, the next day. And maybe that's what that guy they call the Bard had in mind when he said tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. He went on for, I did some research, 3,000 times, but the editor said, Shake, that will not work. We've got to spear some of those and shorten this. So we'll let you get away with tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, because things come in threes. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Those three. The Three Musketeers, written by a black Frenchman. What is a musketeer? First of all, what is a musket? Well, if you know what a musket is, a musketeer is one who uses a musket. And there were 3 musketeers, but there's nothing that said there were only 3 muskets. So somebody else has a sequel which needs to be written. But there was somebody else who hung out with the 3 musketeers. His name was D'Artagnan.
Time, Senator.
You said time?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers, and you are next in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the legislature, I was streamed some additional information by a member of the Clan, and they spelled theirs C-L-A-N, Senator Lowe, not K-L-A-N as the white Christian Americans do, the white Christian Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. And it's not Ku Klux Klan. They didn't know how to be alliterative all the way through. So they left the L off the first name. It's Ku Klux Klan. But the expression was, who clucks like a Klan? And that was how they usually met. When they came together, Senator Lowe, they would call each other together by clucking like a chicken. When they heard that, the Klansmen came flowing and fleeing from every direction. There was to be a meeting. We are going to burn a black church. We're going to rape some black women, and we're going to hang some black children. That's what we live for. Thank God for Jesus. And they flew that rag. That's what those wondrous and wonderful American activities were, and it was under the aegis of what I refer to as the rag. But the thing you all worship. I'm going to digress. But first I got to give you what the clam told me. Why a clam is so happy at high tide. When people go hunting for clams, unoffending clams, minding their own business in clam land, they do it when the water's low so they can catch them. So when the tide is high, as Blondie sang in that song, the tide is high and I, you heard that song, Senator Lowe, and you might even know it. But when the tide was high, the clams had a greater degree of safety. So happy as a clam at high tide is something that you now know in its entirety. You understand the origin of it, and you understand the rationale for that clam's happiness. When the legislature meets, what does it meet for? It should meet to do the things that are beneficial to the people who are not in a position to do those things for themselves. The power of the government should be bent toward making life better for everybody. But that's not the way it goes in this legislature. The governor speaks and the senators hop to. How can it be that there were 37 senators who had said they would go a certain way, then the governor sent, not he didn't come himself, sent his flunkies out there and ordered you all to get on out there and told you how you better not vote, and you succumbed. You succumbed. That's why I call it your legislature. That's the way you all operate. Then after you've done your dirt, you want to stand up here and talk about collegiality. Don't deal with personalities. You can deal with my personality all you want to.
1 minute.
Somebody told me I missed it when Senator Groney referred to me as a son of perdition. Well, I'd rather be a son of perdition than a son of a you-know-what. So if that's the game they want to play, I know how to play that, but I just leave a blank and you can put anything there you want to. I'd rather be a son of perdition than a son of Christianity. I can say that. Christians are the ones who use the foul language. Marriage is supposed to be based on the Christians between one man and one woman. I don't know if that's true, because when old Paul the impostor, whom you all call the apostle, was writing, he said a bishop should be the husband of one wife. To specify one must mean that other men had more than one wife. But if you're a bishop, you should restrict yourself to one. Who would deny that Paul is a Christian? Nobody. There are so many things that went on that you all have no notion of. You say time?
Yes, Senator.
Was that my third time?
No, that was your second. And you're recognized, Senator Chambers, and this is your third time at the mic.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I assure you all that I have things not only to say on these bills, but I have amendments I'm going to offer to these bills. This is my legislature. This room was named after my family, the chambers, the legislative chambers, named after me, after mine. But it was not a name that would be mine had not my forebears been snatched up and brought to this country in slave trafficking, human trafficking, sex trafficking, child abuse and molestation. If these priests during these enlightened times will rape little boys, what do you think those white leaders of yours were doing to little black children? Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, all of them slaveholders, writing those fine words. And as dumb as you all are, you think that they were talking about all people when they put in the Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. They were talking about Britishers who were on this side of the Atlantic being equal to Britishers on the other side of the Atlantic. They were not including the white riffraff. Ask the Irish how they were treated when they first came here. Is that the way you treat people who even look like you? I say. No, they might not say, I say, in the same way you say it. But you understand what they mean. Bigash and bigora. That's Lord have mercy. They've all got their own way of saying it. It's like the chicken crows, the lion roars. The clams just lie there, clamming, being happy when the tide is high. Where am I going with what I'm saying? I'm going where I want to go. And where I lead, you will follow. Some of you have bills, so you're going to have to hang around here today. And I have selected some bills. But unlike my young friend, Senator Wayne, my purview is broader. And I have more in the way of responsibility. But I do believe in second chances. And I think the legislature behaved in a very shameful way when the 37 people shrunk down to 28. Senator Geist, somebody told me that I even said a word or two of praise for her when she was talking about addiction and taking people to the drug court graduations and all these other things and worked on an amendment. I even fell into that moment of good feeling. Then she didn't vote. Didn't vote. Actually, I wasn't really surprised, but I was hopeful. So I'm going to give a second chance to those people who betrayed themselves.
1 minute.
I'm going to give a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance, a fifth chance, a sixth chance, a seventh chance, an eighth chance. I'm not going to tell you why I settled on the number 8, but that'll do for a start. You're going to have that many chances to undo what you did. And if you undo it the first time around, then there's no need for the remaining 7. But the governor has a way of cracking that whip, and it strikes deep, and you feel the pain for a long period of time. So it's going to take a while to alleviate that and try to restore you to a status of self-respect, personal dignity. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Groney, you're welcome to close on Patricia Kircher's. He waives closing. The question before us is adoption of the confirmation report for Patricia Kircher. All those in favor, please vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. Have all voted that wish to? Please record.
40 yeas, no nays on adoption of the confirmation report.
The report is adopted. Moving to the third and final one from education, that being the Paul Turman. Open for discussion. Seeing none, Senator Groney, you're welcome to close. He waives closing. The question before us is the adoption report regarding Paul Turman. All those in favor, please vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. Have all voted that wish to? Please record.
38 ayes, no nays on adoption of the confirmation report.
Confirmation report is adopted. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, the Education Committee reports on 2 appointees to the Board of Trustees of the Nebraska State Colleges.
Senator Groney, you're welcome to open on confirmation report.
Thank you, Mr. President. These appointments are for the Board of Trustees of Nebraska State Colleges. This board was established in the Nebraska Constitution in 1920. Its powers include but are not limited to the following: approve salary and benefits for all system employees, review instructional courses and programs offered by the colleges both on and off campus, establishes system-wide tuition and fees annually, inspects the physical properties of the state college to assure they are maintained in good repair and are accessible, approves degrees awarded by colleges. This board has 6 voting members that are appointed to serve a term of 6 years, and as common practice in this body, I'm asking the body to affirm both appointees with 1 vote. The first is John Cheney, is reappointed for his 2nd term of the board, residing in Omaha. He is retired CEO of Auburn State Bank. He is a graduate of the University of Nebraska and a graduate of the Graduate School of Banking at the University of Wisconsin. Robert Ingalls is a reappointment also. He was first appointed to fill a vacant seat in March 2011 and reappointed in January 2012. This will be his 2nd full term. He is a graduate of Peru State College, resides in Auburn, and is the owner of Ingalls Agency, where he is a real estate broker. The Education Committee advanced these nominations from the committee with a vote of 7 ayes and 1 absent due to sickness. To to add one more thing, the colleges they oversee is Chadron State, Wayne State, and Peru State. I ask for a green light on these appointments. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Groney. Going to floor discussion, Senator Wayne, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to divide the question on I request to divide the question on this one.
The request to divide the question is approved. These are two individuals and easily.
And I won't spend time talking about John Cheney. I do have a little question about why Auburn has two people appointed, but that's a whole, when we're talking the entire state, I think that would have been a good question to be asked, that in a town of 2,500 or less, that there's two people going to the state college board, but that clearly wasn't asked by the Education Committee because we don't ask those questions, I guess, in the Education Committee. But I do think that's some concerning when you look at areas such as Valentine, Nebraska, and areas out in the 3rd District that have Chadron, and you have Wayne State, that there's not an equal representation on this state community college, or state college. But I won't talk too much on this one, but I will spend some time on Robert. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. Senator Salama, you're recognized.
Would Senator Wayne care to yield to a question?
Senator Wayne, would you please yield?
Yes.
Senator Wayne, how many colleges make up our state college system?
3, Peru, Chadron, and Wayne State.
Fantastic. And how many people are on this board?
I believe it was 7. Or might be
7.
11. I got confused. No, 11 is the NET, so it'd be 7.
7. So, thank you, that's all. I just wanted to point out that it makes perfect sense. There's nothing problematic about having two people from southeast Nebraska, i.e. the area of Peru State College, serving on this board, representing about 1/3 of the representation of this board when there's 3 colleges. Since we're on John Cheney, I'll speak on both Robert Ingalls and John Cheney. But first, John Cheney, he's an outstanding public servant. As referenced, he's the former CEO of Auburn State Bank. He's committed to the future of our state college system, as seen by the positive actions taken in his previous terms, and it's an honor to endorse his nomination to another term on this board. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Salama. Senator Williams, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, colleagues. I also stand in support of John Cheney for this position. I've had the good fortune to know John for nearly 30 years, watched his career in banking in Auburn and his involvement with community activities there, but always his passion for education, and I have great confidence that he would continue serving very well in this position, so therefore I strongly support his nomination. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Williams. Senator Chambers, you're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. President, I would like to ask Senator Groney a question.
Senator Groney, would you please yield?
Yes.
Senator Groney, I really don't know the answer to this. Is this Cheney spelled the same way as Lon Chaney? I don't know if his was Cheney.
I know how Mr. Cheney's name is spelled, but I'm not old enough to remember Lon.
Thank you. Members of the legislature, I will accept this probably as the spelling of Lon Chaney's name, but it seemed like I may have seen it as CHE. But anyway, he played character roles in movies. He played the Wolf Man, a lycanthrope. He suffered from lycanthropy. That was what turned a person into a wolf. Even though a man is righteous and says his prayers at night, yet he may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms at night. But that word were, W-E-R-E, was applied to other animals that could make human beings partake of their nature. There were were bears, were leopards, and on and on. I don't know that an actual case of lycanthropy was ever recorded. But if it were, it would not have resulted in a person transforming into a wolf who walked upright in the way Lon Chaney did. But he had that facial expression that always made him look as if he were pleading. This is before he went through the transformation. They were able, in the process of making movies about the wolf man, to portray this individual as a sympathetic character. And that's because Lon Chaney did not want to be a wolf man. He did not want to become a wolf man when the moon was full. And he deeply regretted the things that he did while in the guise of this wolf man. So if you want to give a person a pleading or sorrowful expression, then you make the eyebrows slope downward on the outer edges, and the person looks like he or she is sad, sorrowful, or pleading. Lon Chaney, even in some of the movies, tried to explain to people why he needed to be locked in a cage. He did not want them to know what he was, but he wanted them to make that cage as strong as possible. You couldn't kill a wolf man with just anything. There was a certain type of metal that would take a wolf man out of his misery and out of this world. I cannot say when Lon Chaney was worse, when he was a 100% human being, or when he was 50% human and 50% wolf. But nevertheless, he was the stuff from which horror movies were made. And he always would find a way to escape if somebody put him in a cage. And I won't tell you all of his adventures or describe in gory detail how he dispatched people. But speaking of him, when he changed into a wolf, brings me to a discussion of your president who is losing his mind before your very eyes. He is stone cold crazy. And he is taking this country on a path that will lead to destruction for a lot of people, other countries.
Senator. Thank you, Senator Chambers. Senator Vargas, you're recognized. Senator Vargas, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, President. I just want to, I'm going to specifically just talk about Mr. Chaney. In support of Mr. Chaney, I think he has been a very conscientious member of the state college system, and he's a continued asset to our state. And I've had the pleasure of spending time with him these last couple of years, learning more about the state college system, as he's been an advocate. And I think this is a really good appointment specifically for Mr. Chaney. And I look forward to having him on the State College Board of Trustees, and we'll ask everybody to support for him as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Vargas. Senator Chambers, you're recognized.
Mr. President, members of the legislature, Senator Wayne is a very competent attorney, and when he embarks upon a discussion, he is informed in the premises as the legal phraseology goes. I even knew how many state colleges there are, so that was a softball question. When you're going to trick somebody, then make it really tricky, and the number of people on a board. A young black woman, a very beautiful young black woman, attended Peru State College, and she was murdered. That's what I think about when I think of Peru State College, and it replaced what I had been thinking. I'd given talks at Peru State College. And the reason I went to Peru State was because they were very racist in that town, and it put the word out that if I ever came there, what would happen to me because of the kind of talks I gave, and I went there and gave those kind of talks. And I stayed and answered questions. And I went out into what's called the Commons area to answer questions and continue the discussion. White people are brave and bold when there are bunches of them, or they think they're dealing with a coward. That takes me somewhat away from what I've been talking about, but it touches on what I touched on about whether Lon Chaney was worse when he was half man, half wolf, or when he was 100% man, which led me into a discussion of your president, who uses obscenities, vulgarisms, and profanity that I don't use. And his so-called base, the ignorant, openly racist white supremacists who are detrimental to the cause of true white supremacy, they cheer, they go up in a shout. They might even have orgasms from the looks on their faces. Don't get upset. I'm talking like your president does now, but I don't use the foul words like the F word that he would use and has used. Your president. He is stone crazy. Even some Republicans are becoming fearful. He's going to have, I'm just going to make it $10 billion, maybe 8.9, somewhere in there, but what's a billion or two when you're dealing with a madman? Why do you need a large defense budget if large amounts of money can be taken out to build a wall? As those three young ladies saying, ain't no mountain high enough. You could say, ain't no wall high enough. She said, ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no wall deep enough. Ain't no river wide enough. Ain't no wall wide enough. A wall is stationary. Some people had mistaken the Maginot Line because it was a line for a wall, but it was a string of fortresses. But here's what happened. The enemy outflanked them. The enemy went around the Maginot Line. No wall has been built so high that people cannot get over it if they choose. It's not going to be sunk so deep that people cannot tunnel under it. There are tunnels right now that go under that line that separates America from Mexico into American cities. There are some tunnels that even have train tracks in them. And you think people cannot go under a wall?
1 minute.
You think they can't go around it? So he's shown his lunacy there, and he may be stopped. Now he's saying he's going to cut off foreign aid to 3 countries. And Congress whimperingly say, well, you can't do that. He say, go to H. I'll do what I want to do. More craziness. And white people are shaking in their boots, afraid of him. Show the double standard. Some woman said Joe Biden kissed her on the back of the head. Now, I don't understand why he would do that. But they're in a tizzy, and Trump boasted about grabbing women in their privates. Boasted about it. And his base knew it. And the white fundamentalists know it. But they praise him and follow him. A crotch grabber. And Joe Biden kissed a woman on the back of her head. Now, I'd say that would indicate he's a little tense.
Senator?
You said time?
Yes, Senator.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Senator Chambers, this is your 3rd time at the mic.
That was my 3rd time?
This is your 3rd time.
Thank you. But I will find many opportunities. We are going to come back this afternoon, too. So we'll just continue. On these kinds of motions, there's no opportunity to offer an amendment. And I wouldn't need to because I will have enough opportunities. But if I can find a way to use this much time on something as innocuous as a confirmation, what is going to happen when we get into some of the bills? It will be an interesting ride. for all of us. It will be fun for me. Somebody said, revenge is sweet. That's why your God said, vengeance is mine, I will repay, not you. Revenge is so sweet, you will go overboard with it. Only a God is capable of properly, appropriately, and judiciously wreaking revenge. Once humans start, they can't stop. Senator Geist had suggested how once somebody starts on the drugs, they cannot really pull away. Others said the same thing. There are many things that cause human beings to become addicted, but nothing in my mind is so addictive as not the thirst for revenge, but being in a position to wreak revenge. What I will do may partake of some aspects of revenge, but that is not all that is involved. Payback is not the same thing as revenge. I handed out what I call an Erniegram this morning, as I hand one out every morning, that deals with what I consider to have been the most treacherous thing that had happened so far this session. Not the most treacherous that has ever happened. This legislature is too petty to do things that rise to even that level, even when we're talking about treachery. Senator Arch's name gives you a chance for a lot of things. A person can be an archdeacon, an archdemon, an archfiend, an arch support in your shoes, or an arch that is a weight-bearing form of architecture. But the arch did not serve the function of an arch the other day. The term arch was sullied, dragged through the mud, and it behooves me to try to salvage a shred, if not a modicum, of dignity for the one who bears that name. You all say we shouldn't call people out by name. Things are done by people, and people have names. When the FBI put out its top 10 wanted criminals, they don't just say a bank robber and list the banks that were robbed. They not only give the name, they give a picture. You all are overly sensitive because you are embarrassed about some of the things you've done and you don't want attention called to it. If you all ran into the stuff that I do, as I say, you would run someplace and hide. If somebody calls you a fool, what difference does that make? Are you a fool because somebody calls you a fool? Maybe so. If you behave like one after you are called that, then that person put the right label on you. I don't argue with fools because they don't know enough for me to argue with them. There are some people so ignorant of the subject that they want to argue about that their little opinions are outside the boundaries of rational discussion. So it's pointless to argue with them. Somebody may tell Einstein, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Seeing no one wishing to speak, Senator Groner, you're welcome to close on the confirmation report. He waives closing. The question before us is the confirmation report from Education. All those in favor, please vote aye. All those opposed, vote nay. Have we all voted that wished? Please record.
41 ayes, no nays on adoption of the report.
Confirmation report is adopted. Moving to the second of Robert Ingalls is now open for discussion. Okay. Mr. Clerk, for motion.
Mr. President, with respect to the appointment of Mr. Ingalls, Senator Wayne would move to recommit that report to back to the Education Committee for further consideration.
Senator Wayne, you're welcome to open on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know this is unique, but I think sitting on Judiciary and sitting on General Affairs, I was not there on the Judiciary, but I read it. We have a duty to vet. If they come before this body, everything we vote on, there is a duty to vet. And in no way do I think Mr. Inglis is racist or have problems or have issues. My problem is with the process. Questions were not asked that should have been asked. And here's why I say that. I sat in the General Affairs, and I want to thank Chairman Breezy for allowing the committee to vet and ask tough questions. We asked an individual about shares that he had that he wasn't even in control of because we didn't want the appearance of undue influence in the Liquor Control Commission. Judiciary asked question and question about someone's undue influence or appearance that they will have on the Crime Commission. But yet, in Education Committee, we heard on this floor that we don't vet. We just send through. It's inconceivable to me that we don't sit down and have a conversation about somebody ahead of time. And what I mean by that, in this instance, there were some Facebook posts that caused me some concerns. I'm not saying this individual is racist. I don't know him. But I think as a person who is appointed to a state college institution, we have to make sure all students feel welcomed. And when there's a question about why is there not uprisings regarding black-on-black crime as there are in Ferguson, Missouri, that raises a concern of whether he's culturally competent to understand the issues that affect many other students who face or go to state college institutions. That question wasn't asked. If he shares a post dealing with immigration and border issues, I want to know, are DACA students allowed underneath his eyes? Should they be welcomed in our state college institutions? When he shares posts about socialism and comparing it to the American Indian, I want to know, will our students still feel comfortable? Now, most of his posts are about real estate, but I sat on 2 committees where we asked those tough questions. So this motion to recommit is not about the individual, because I think he'll be able to answer all those questions. I think one of it was a genuine question of how can I put these 2 together regarding Ferguson and black-on-black crime? And I think he needs to be educated on those issues because an unarmed black man being shot is not the same as a gang violence. Although the end result may be the same of murder, there's a completely different standard when it comes to a police officer who is here to preserve and protect us than somebody else. But that question should have been asked. Those questions of individuals who take political stands have to be asked in a non-political setting such as our state colleges. This is the only thing I think we can do. I researched this motion over the break because I don't want this body just to vote up or down, because according to our rules, if they don't achieve 25 votes, that report and confirmation is dead. I don't know enough information to vote up or down. But I think there are enough political posts, at least the one that I read, and I can give the dates of them, that raises concerns and questions, especially when an African-American young lady was murdered at Peru State, and Peru State allowed that individual to stay almost in the same dorm as that person after sexual assault histories and other things. I have to make sure the young African Americans who are going to Chadron, who are going to Wayne State, who are going to Peru, are comfortable with their appointees and their board to feel welcomed. And I'm not there yet. And let me be clear again, because somebody will take this out of context. I am not calling this individual racist. Maybe he had some poor choices on hitting the share button. Maybe he had genuinely asking a question about the difference between a police shooting an individual and black-on-black crime. And again, I think there's some education that has to happen there, and I'd love to sit down and have that conversation. But that does raise a question of cultural competency. But just to get a hearing or a slate, come before a committee without vetting, does this body an injustice. We are about to take a vote to recommit to get more information, which means they need to have a new public hearing and get more information, so that we can have a full, fair debate on this individual. If you want to sidestep the rule and your constitutional duty to confirm somebody and just go with the governor, then what's the point of having that in the rules? Let's just strike it out, and we'll amend it to say whoever the governor appoints, we just automatically affirm, regardless of what happens out there, and we'll still be able to abide by our Constitution, but let's not waste time on this. We'll just put it as a legislative resolution below, and they automatically are approved when they're non-controversial, and we'll just make every appointment non-controversial. But those are questions that have to be asked. We have to vet better people who become before our committee, and it starts right now. It starts right now. So that's what this recommit motion is about. It's about making sure that when we say A or nay, and we're putting somebody on a public state college board, that they are welcoming to all students. This is not the Board of Regents where you run a campaign and you can say whatever you want and the populace takes the vote and you win and you get on. This is an appointment from our governor that comes to this body as a second level of vetting. That's what I believe the reason it was in our Constitution. And if you look at the history of why our state colleges were initially as teacher colleges, it was a vetting process for this body to double check. And we gave that up. We just washed it away. And I've sat here for 2 years, and I was a part of that. Somebody would come up, I would hear the introduction, think, oh, great person, let's vote on it. And we did. But because I've been inspired to dig a little more and dig a little deeper over these last couple of days, that's what I did. Staff's a little mad at me because they were helping me research. We normally don't do that on this stuff. We take their word. But we can't do that anymore. There's been 2 committees that I've heard about where somebody almost slid through, and without proper vetting, and we have to do a better job. So this is not a vote against this individual. This is a vote against the process, because process matters. If you want exact dates of the votes, of the post, I can share, but all that's going to do is drag up more media and more media attention. I'm trying to be as coy and smart as we can, because this person did not jump into the political arena. He didn't put his name on a ballot to run for this office. I don't even know how they're selected. But when they come before our committees, and when they come before this body, we have a duty to vet. We have a duty to make sure in this particular instance that everybody is welcomed. That's what this vote is about. It's about making sure everybody is welcomed at our state colleges. Because if just as I could find it, so can our students. And again, they're not the craziest posts in the world that I've seen, but neither is somebody who used to be a part of a liquor control industry who's now retired out of it. We still had a duty to ask questions, basic questions. A question like, do you believe students who are here for DACA should be welcomed at Peru State, Chadron, and Wayne State? If he says yes, done. That post doesn't mean anything. On the record, he supports it. He supports our students. Do you feel that African American students are welcoming? Yes, takes care of the issue. But without that, I can't support this person. And so easier than voting no or not voting, the easiest thing is for this body to get questions answered regarding some of the posts that we've seen around immigrants, African-American students, and the cultural competency between, quite honestly, an unarmed man being shot by a cop and black-on-black crime. All I want is some basic answers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. Senator Halloran would like to welcome 35 fourth graders from St. Michael's Elementary School in Hastings. They are seated in the north balcony. Please rise and be recognized by your Nebraska Legislature. Debate is now open on the motion to recommit to committee the confirmation report of Robert Ingalls. Senator Wayne, you are recognized.
Thank you. I would like to ask Senator Groney a question or two.
Senator Groney, would you yield to a question?
Yes.
I'd like to have a bigger conversation about our education system. This is not to bloviate in any way. This is more just to have a conversation about what do you think as education chair of how our state colleges, our community colleges, and our university all interact and how that suits best, that model sits best for Nebraska.
Sir, I'm not going to debate you on education policy. There are plenty of times to do that with other bills related to the coordinating commission. I don't know if you know what the coordinating commission is, but what you just mentioned, we have created that commission to do exactly what you're talking about.
The coordinating commission, so on the education issue, we can't talk generally education?
It's not germane to what we're doing here.
It's not germane. So pointing somebody to the state college commission, state college board of trustees, we shouldn't have a conversation about their function and their role as it relates to education in Nebraska and how this individual sees that?
You want to talk to me about this individual? That's what the matter at hand is. Let's talk.
So how does this person see the role of state colleges, community colleges, and the university system working together in the state of Nebraska?
His position is the state colleges. His role is not on the coordinating commission or the community college board or the university's regent. His duty is the state colleges system.
So you don't know that answer?
No, none of the members of the committee asked it.
So if you were appointing somebody to a board, wouldn't you want them to verify or at least say that they believe in the institution that they're being appointed to?
This individual, I believe, was graduated from Peru State College. He's a big fan of the state college system.
What about Wayne State? Was there any talk about maybe shifting our colleges around?
We handled those questions talking to Greg Adams and a few others about the Wayne State. And the individual that was also appointed that represents the college, can't think of his name right now, the second appointment. We asked plenty of questions about the relationship between the three colleges, how the money was distributed, how the three interacted. The committee did a good job asking those types of questions.
And I appreciate that. And the reason I want to I'm not trying to be pugnacious. I'm just trying to have a conversation because, you know, I just recall like TIF, it was a constitutional amendment, but we were arguing about statutes and TIF. And so if we can have a broader conversation about the role of state colleges, I think it doesn't matter what bill's before us. If it touches on that topic, Senator Gurney, you have taught me that we can talk about it. So I want to engage in this conversation. Now, if you're telling me on the mic, and this is a question, that we're only going to limit ourselves to the items before us for the rest of this session, and you give me your word, I'll give you my word, that's all we'll do.
Am I still on the mic?
Yep.
I believe in that last instance we talked about one subject, it was tax increment financing. And here we're talking about the state college board.
Exactly, and I want to know the role of the State College Board, and how do you feel about that?
It's a great institution. All three colleges do a great job for rural Nebraska.
Do you think we still need the state colleges versus community colleges?
I think we need all.
And why?
We need as many educational avenues for a child that we can
1 minute.
create.
Well, how does that interact with our property taxes, our education, particularly community colleges and state colleges?
If I remember right, sir, on the debate we had on TIF, I was direct with my questions. If you would go do that, honor me with that same courtesy, I'll gladly answer your questions.
Direct with your, well, I get to answer the questions. I've seen you ask questions how you want to ask and cut people off. And so this is a good note of how to teach cleology, as you always say, about being cordial and being like another state senator. So let's have that conversation. So does state colleges have any impact on our property tax system?
No.
And do you think they should? Should they have their own taxing authority?
No.
Why is that?
Because the system works.
The system works exactly the way it is?
Yes.
So we don't need to make any improvements to our state college education system?
Time, senators. Thank you, Senator Groney and Senator Wayne. Senator Chambers, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the legislature. As that fellow used to say on That Was the Week That Was, I believe, very interesting. It's easy for people to give it down here, but they can't take it. I give it, I can take it, but I will give it back. People can ask me anything they want to about anything they choose, and Senator Groney, for somebody who is up on the kind of issues that he is, has skin too thin to get involved in those kind of discussions, because it'll come back to haunt you. And then when you begin to talk about limiting the discussion to this or that, when on other issues you've ranged far afield and abroad because you wanted to run out the clock, then it doesn't sound very becoming. But in the same way that senators don't have to know how to read, senators don't have to know how to write, senators don't have to be able to think, they don't have to understand logic, they don't even have to know how to spell the word logic, they don't have to be consistent. But Senator Wayne has raised an interesting issue, because it was one of the principles, and I put that word in quotation marks, invoked by a senator who had promised to vote for a bill, had spoken for the need of it, then sat on her hands and didn't vote. I'm going to read from an article that appeared in the Lincoln Journal-Star, March 28th, and it was on a Thursday that the article appeared, so this event must have happened on a Wednesday. In the end, neither of the two senators who worked with Hunt on fashioning that compromise amendment, Senator John Arch of La Vista and Lincoln Senator Suzanne Geist, gave her an affirmative vote. Neither one did. The two were present, not voting on the cloture motion to stop the filibuster and allow a vote on the amendment and then the bill. Geist said she did not vote on the motion because she was, quote, frustrated with the process, unquote. She refused to comment further. Senator Wayne said that it's the process that is of concern to him. Now, maybe I'm the only one who read what Senator Geist said, because I might be the only one who reads the newspaper. But that's what she told the media. Then she wouldn't say anymore. She's something like Pilate, who asked what is truth, then walked out. She raised an issue, then refused to comment on it. Senator Wayne is willing and is demonstrating that he will discuss these issues in the broadest way. When we legislate, we do not limit what we say to the item in front of us. I'm going to show you all a picture that's going to become famous as the Mona Lisa. If you look at this sheet of paper, you will not see the picture. You know what the picture is that I put on this sheet of paper? I put on this sheet of paper a portrait of a microbe in its real size. And because the microbe is so small, you won't see the microbe's picture.
1 minute.
But if you get a microscope, you will see something that would shock you. Here's the point that I'm making. If Senator Geist says something, it's all right. If Senator Wayne says something and makes it clear why he's asking the question, then people get very nervous, get very jumpy, and want to say, well, we don't do it that way, or such and such, and so and so. I've been here long enough to have heard it all numerous times. And when I see that somebody is unable to answer a question, I just let them go, because their inability or unwillingness to answer a question about the very subject of his or her committee, then that inability to answer and the unwillingness to just acknowledge, I don't know the answer, is commentary enough. But when you fly a false flag and somebody's about to pull down that Jolly Roger, see, real pirates flew the Jolly
Senator.
Roger. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Senator Brewer, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I needed to respond to some of the comments from Senator Wayne on the committee process. And it may have been focused on the Education Committee, but the Government Committee may have had the first committee appointment that ran into problems. And so everyone understands that I probably am not the same chair as others in how I treat people and deal with issues. There's probably a lot of people that are saying, thank goodness. But when we had the appointment last year for the new superintendent of the State Patrol, I personally grilled him for 1 solid hour. So when we have individuals come before the committee, and I think everybody that's on the committee can safely say that there's none of them that survive without me asking questions. Most recently, it was on the appointment to the Emergency Response Committee. That committee is unique in that if people don't understand, the members of that are not focused on statewide major emergencies like we just had with flooding. Now they wear multiple hats, and so they may also be functioning in some capacity with other emergency services. That committee is primarily focused on what we call NBC, nuclear, biological, and chemical. To be qualified and to be a part of this committee and contribute, you better bring certain unique skills with you, and there's not very many people with those skills. So making sure they have them is first. And I'll be the first to tell you that I have never looked at anyone's Facebook's posts. I don't look at their social posts. Maybe I should. For one, I don't have the time or the real desire to pry into other people's lives. What I'm going to do is look at what comes before me as a committee chair with all of their qualifications. I'm assuming there has been some screening when they give us a candidate. Now that may be a luxury I don't take in the future, but the candidates we had were all more than qualified. It was after that fact, after we voted, that it was brought to my attention that there were some posts that I personally did not favor, and maybe that's what made me realize that I need to do a deeper dive. But the problem is, these are volunteers. They are not paid. If they come to us with these unique skills, like in this case with nuclear, biological, and chemical knowledge, and we have a zero defect world, where if they ever post anything that someone's offended by, I think we'll have a very small pool of folks to pick from. Now, had I known, I probably would have asked questions there, and I think some of the questions that Senator Wayne are asking are legitimate questions, because if you're going to be someone who is having oversight on our college system, then you probably need to ask certain questions if you're concerned about it. I guess the point is that if we make this a process that is so overbearing and so difficult that we have no one that wants to be a part of these committees, we're weaker for that process. And if we live in a world where anything you do that I'm offended by, I'm going to end.
1 minute.
I'm going to end your opportunities to be a part of anything. We lose some of that First Amendment right, and I think we need to think that through. If there's a true problem there, then let's find it and let's identify it and deal with it. But for my committee, if the senators have an issue, their time to bring it up is there in that committee. And if not, then I think we need to have a process that somehow we change before it ever goes through the committee. Because right now, I think we're going to eliminate good candidates for committee assignments if we have this zero defect world. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Brewer. Senator Vargas would like to welcome 87 fourth graders and 5 fourth grade teachers from Bancroft Elementary in Omaha. They are seated in the north balcony. Please rise and be recognized by your Nebraska legislature. And Senator Brandt would like to recognize 45 members of the government class from Wilbur-Clatonia High School in Wilbur, Nebraska. They are seated in the south balcony. Please rise and be recognized by your Nebraska legislature. Continuing debate on the motion, Senator Wayne, you are recognized. Senator Wayne.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Again, I just find this inconceivable that we don't have a vetting process. And where I'm at in this process is, let me step back and be crystal clear again. This vote right here is not on the individual. I don't know this individual. I don't have enough information to vote up or down on this individual. My issue is, recently, Nemaha County, Peru State, a jury of people from that county said Peru State was guilty in a wrongful death suit involving an African-American young lady. And a question not being asked about the safety of students after that so recent event boggles my mind. Boggles my mind. I just say, this is a question of process. This is not a question of, and after, I have no doubt in my mind when Senator Groney has a public hearing over noon on this issue, because so many people are going to agree process matters and vote green, that he's going to answer these questions so easily, that every student matters. We are taking actions to go back and redo our student handbook, and we are ensuring public safety is number one. And that, you know what? All students matter, no matter where they are. We want to make sure that there's equal access to all. But if I can't point to that in the transcript, if I can't see that question, and I see these other things out there, it's hard for me to go back to my community and just say, hey, we didn't vet. We just took the governor's word for it and went ahead. Again, this is not a referendum on the individual. I believe from everybody I've talked to in that area who we have political differences, but I respect them, think this person is a very good individual. I'm saying there has to be stuff on the record of how we vet people, that we have to address them, because we can't have one standard in general affairs. We can't have one standard in judiciary. We can't have one standard in urban affairs, another standard in education. That there has to be some core questions that are asked around the institution that they are being appointed to oversee, such as the future of that institution, what that individual would like to see in that institution. How about a question about how do you feel about students who come from Omaha, Lincoln, because these are mainly rural areas. What are you doing to work with colleges and community colleges? Just some basic general questions on vetting. That is what this vote is about. This is about how we did the process. And this is an easy, quick fix. We voted green. day to lay over. They could have 7-day posting on a hearing. Next week, they can have a hearing on this issue over lunch, come back the next day, sails right through. But at least we did a process which answered the community and the constituent questions that are before us in this body. This is one of our treasures. These institutions are our future and our building block. Shadron, when I went out there, and in fact, numerous students go out there that I know, one, they like Forest, when they want to do something around that area, they go out to that institution. Some of them just play sports. Wayne State, I can't count the number of times they had to go up there to pick up kids that I coached and that I mentored who are either playing sports, running track, or some of them just going to school because it's a great place to go.
1 minute.
Peru State, numerous kids from Omaha that I had to go down and pick up, watch basketball games that I coach. I'm very familiar with these institutions. And that is why I'm asking this body to make sure that everybody we put on this board goes through a minimum vetting process. But if we say no, we're not going to recommit, that we're just going to rubber stamp everybody, then I'm going to amend the rules to say we'll never vote on these again. What's the point? We'll just be unanimous because there's no point. We don't vet. We don't have a conversation. I'm not saying let's go through everybody's social media and Facebook, but when an issue is raised, you need to figure out how to answer that question. And there's an issue raised. And it's unfortunate that it had to be raised on the floor because we didn't vet at the committee level. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. Senator Wayne, that was your second time on the mic. You have your close remaining. Senator Slama, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. As somebody from the area who knows Bob Ingalls personally and some of the things that have been referenced on the mic today with regards to Peru State, I thought it'd be worthwhile for me to get up and share my take on it. So I'll be brief. The case of the murder of Ty Thomas, which occurred in Peru in 2010, which has been referenced a few times over, it's worth clarifying that judges ruled in 2015 and 2017 that Peru State College was not liable in Ty Thomas's death in that case. Now to refocus on the nominee himself as the individual, I understand there's extended debate today on the process. I'd like to refocus on the individual here, Bob Ingalls. He is the former mayor of Auburn, a position he served in for 8 years. Before that, he was a member of the Auburn School Board for 12 years. This man is a committed public servant who served on the State College Board of Trustees since 2011, replacing Floyd Vertiska. He was reappointed in 2012. And in my interactions with Mayor Ingalls, I have had no indication in his actions or his words that he would be anything but welcoming to all students. This is evidenced also in his service on the State College Board of Trustees. And I do believe he would be a great candidate for re-endorsement, and I encourage the committee to adopt the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Slama. Senator Chambers, you are recognized.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the legislature, white people need to open their eyes and realize that people who are black can tell white people what it means to be black. You can't tell me. I can tell you how you mistreat us, how you make assumptions and presumptions that somebody's all right because they've been all right with you. Look what old man Ricketts, Pete Ricketts' daddy did. All those things he posted that shows he's a racist, he's anti-Muslim, so he's a religious bigot, a racist bigot, and his son wants to act like he's shocked because it's public. He knew about his father and what his father believed because he's just like his daddy. How about this guy that Ricketts put on his staff, who is a white nationalist, and made these postings, and then when it became public, then Ricketts said he's shocked. Well, that shows his inability to judge character. I didn't know about the things that Senator Wayne raised about this man. They are issues of concern to black people, not white people. Senator Slama's not going to be upset with somebody because they're a racist. She agrees with that stuff. So her endorsing somebody means nothing. and especially being appointed by a governor who himself appointed a white nationalist who had put these things out there for the world to see. Then they're going to tell me as a black man how I ought to say this guy's good because he's good to them. Well, they all feel the same way. Let me give you an example of how ignorant you all are. You all use the term black on black crime. Well, for you white people, let me explain something to you. Talk to criminologists, talk to cops, talk to prosecutors. People commit crimes against the people they're around. If you have Jewish criminals commit more crimes against Jews than other people because they're around Jews. White people commit more crimes against white people than they do against anybody else. Why don't you talk about white on white crime? There are more white people in prison than black people. White people commit more crimes against white people than they do others. You don't talk about white on white crime. This white guy that Senator Wayne raised a question about for talking about black on black crime, why defend him? Let him go before the committee and explain what he meant. Senator Wayne is saying that those questions ought to be put during the committee. When people come before the Judiciary Committee, Senator Geist brought a bill and she was so upset at my questioning, she got the members of the committee to apologize to her about the way I asked questions. She said I went after her like I didn't go after other people. She should have seen the way I went after the Chief Justice, a lawyer representing the Douglas County Attorney's Office, and the inquiry I'm going to make about him to the Council for Discipline. Then she says she got all the members of the committee to apologize to her about me. That's what she told me. And not one of those committee members came to me to tell me that they apologized to her for me and the way I went after her bill. And I told her when she told me that she's making herself too important, that I say what I've got to say to whoever comes. Now, people have names. These brothers and sisters are the ones who apologized to Senator Geist, who refused to vote on a bill that she said she'd vote on after she helped put together a compromise. Based on Senator Geist, Senator Lathrop apologized to her about my conduct. Senator Pansing Brooks apologized to her. Senator Brandt apologized to her. Senator DeBoer apologized to her. Senator Moorfeld apologized to her. Senator Slama apologized to her, and Senator Wayne apologized to her. That's what Senator Geist said. All the members of the Judiciary Committee apologized to her because her feelings, I guess, were hurt. That's silly. And why didn't the committee members talk to me? And you know why not bring these things up? When it's appropriate and the discussion devolves on the issue of how black people are mistreated and how insensitive white people are and the things white people do behind the back of black people. But nobody on that committee can say that I've mistreated or dealt harshly with any of them because Senator Geist told me what she told me.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Senator Groney, you are recognized.
Thank you. I stand to correct and defend the Education Committee's actions. Senator Wayne is wrong. We never met over noon for 10 minutes and confirmed these individuals. We had a hearing on our regular schedule. It was put out 7 days in advance, so people knew when the hearing was. They could come in to testify as an opponent or neutral on all these individuals. On these two individuals, and Senator Wayne mentioned, to correct the record, why wasn't the safety of the school and the students addressed? Because I read to you what their mission statement is. This Board of Trustees, Nebraska State College, approves salaries and benefits for all system employees, review instruction, courses, and programs offered by the college at both and on and off campus, establish system-wide tuition and fees annually, inspect the physical properties of the state college, assure that they are maintained in good repair and are accessible, approve degrees awarded by the colleges. That is their mission statement. That is our directive as a committee to ask questions on. As far as student safety, there are a mirage of bills and statutes where we direct the administrations of colleges to protect the children. In fact, we've had 3 or 4 sexual abuse bills, sexual assault bills brought to our committee, and we did vote out Senator Kavanaugh's LB 534 to require public post-secondary education institutions to conduct an annual sexual assault climate survey. This body does react to situations. I understand what this is all about, but when accusations are made and falsehoods are attacking a committee, 8 good people on a committee who work hard and voted all these applicants out unanimously, and there's these individuals that step forward for these boards, folks, to attack them for political reasons and to dig up old emails that I've seen, the 2 emails on Mr. Ingalls, and I see no hate or anger or prejudice in there. He's asking philosophical questions in a free society that we ought to be able to do. You can read in his deal his heartfelt concern for individuals of all races and violence. And he's asking pertinent questions. There's no racism in here. And he doesn't like socialism, neither do I. But I'm going to defend the character of this individual. He doesn't deserve this. He's stepping forward with no pay to sit on this board. And I'm going to defend my committee. Because somebody can't handle questions that are pertinent to their bill and doesn't like the discussion and then takes it vengeance and bullies the rest of us. I'm going to stand up against that too, folks. I have thick skin, Senator Chambers. I've had bills killed by you and other people, and we've gone toe to toe, and you've yelled at me and I've yelled at you. That's being a human being. But this is getting petty, way beneath the body. And if somebody thinks they're winning the bullying fight, let them win, because I'm not going there. You can check my record. I have always discussed, Senator Chambers, the bill at hand. I've never gone off into religion. I've never gone off chasing after the wind. I've stuck to the issue. And I looked at the tape of the debate that has upset Senator Wayne, and I was civil. I asked questions pertaining to the issue at hand. And I accepted the answers, and I firmly told the body where I stood on it. If you want to continue this and attack good men like Bob Ingalls and drag the whole system down, fine. We do vet people, folks. They fill out a form about being a felon if they have any conflicts. They have to disclose what their financial interests are for a non-payment job to be a public servant, and we're standing here disgrading them. I can't handle that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Groney. Senator Chambers, you are recognized, and this is your 3rd opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the legislature. It doesn't bother Senator Groney because he's white. And this white man, if he's got racist attitudes toward black people, will not affect Senator Groney. In fact, Senator Groney has talked about religion. We had a discussion about what the thieves said to Jesus on the cross, and Senator Groney got it wrong. He doesn't remember things. But that's what happens with these young people. They've got so many things they're interested in that they forget. On the other hand, somebody as old as I am, closer to being 100 than I am to being 60, will remember things. Old people remember. What these young pups who think they're smart don't understand about old people is that we hear what we need to hear. Every closed eye is not asleep. And that's why we can call back and convict you and condemn you for things you said because you thought we were not listening or you weren't paying attention to what you said. You all have thin skin that is too thin. This is a legislature. We talk about life and death literally. And I've been told, by the way, by other members of the Judiciary Committee, they did not apologize to Senator Geist for me, so she lied. She outright lied. She stood here and told me all the members of the Judiciary Committee apologized to her about what I said. And then I asked her, what did I say that's different from what I say to others? Well, she didn't want to go into it. And then she helps fashion a compromise and is supporting a bill, then she doesn't support it. She says because she's upset with the system. No, the governor cracked the whip. That's what it is. I know what it is, and I'll call it what it is. And you all stop doing those things if you don't want to be called out on it. Stop portraying yourself as a holy Joe and a holy Jane if that's not what you are. Your works are going to characterize you as far as I'm concerned. And I'm going to judge you by what you do, not what you say, because you all don't tell the truth. You know you don't tell the truth. And you know why you change your views? Because the governor ordered you to do it. And he had his flunkies out there dragging you all outside this room, and you went the way those flunkies told you should go, even though it meant breaking faith with your colleague in here. The colleague you worked with, who, in my opinion, weakened the original form of her bill, trying to work with you all, then you all betrayed her. And the excuse is, well, I was upset with the system, with the process. That's nonsense. Maybe I ought to start using the kind of language that your president does because you cheer him. I mean the vulgarity, the obscenity, the profanity that has white people cheering, Christian white people. And you cannot understand me using the words of your language, and I speak your language better than you do, by the way. I don't say them when it should be those. I can show you transcripts. I didn't say them things was such and such. Them things? And if you want me to show you in the transcripts, I can show you. But I don't call you down on everything. That is a sign of a defective education. People who go to these little schools come away with defective education. People who go to big schools and don't pay attention come away with a defective education. You manifest the quality and caliber of your education by the way you express yourself. And when you're here on this floor, we deal with language, we deal with words. That's what we specialize in. Then we commit those words to paper. And I'm very much upset about the incompetent way that words are put together. And some bills in the past I've tried to help clean up, but I'm not going to do all of them. But you watch what happens the next few days. And I'm going to be a main character, a main actor when it comes to those things. And I've got some bills of mine that I've already drafted amendments to. And it's going to give Senator Lowe, I believe, in second chances. It's going to give them 8 opportunities to undo the damage that they did by breaking faith. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Seeing no one else wishing to speak, Senator Wayne, you are recognized to close on the motion.
We need to stop with the, thank you, Mr. President. We need to stop with the mendacity. We need to stop bloviating. The reality is, Senator Groney, I didn't say you had a noon confirmation hearing. I think this is part of the problem. Maybe we don't listen to people on the floor. What I said is this is a simple solution to fix. You have a noon confirmation hearing next week. You asked some questions about students feeling welcomed and those things that I asked. And by the end of next week, this is back on a vote and it flies through. But because we don't listen, we just had the whole record get muddled with nonsense, with mendacity. And the reality is, after this, there's an end in sight, colleagues. The next after this, the next business and labor, I read through them, I'm comfortable. I'm actually withdrawing my motion on Senator Kolowski's bill. You guys will have an extended debate about, I'm pretty sure, LB 243. Other than that, we got plenty of time till we get to Senator Friesen's bill where we talk about some things. And that's just because I think learner's permits shouldn't be able to text and drive. But other than that, this isn't all-day session. But I am going to take time to figure some things out and talk about it. And to Senator Slama's point, This is not a referendum on the individual. In fact, I said I don't know him. I said I believe that he might have just hit the share button on some things he probably shouldn't have shared, or made a mistake, and can see now maybe why it's taken out of context. But let's just ask about it. We have a constitutional duty, Senator Slama, to advise and consent, well, particularly confirm on this particular one, and it's in our rules. And I think as a young aspiring attorney, you believe process matters too. So process matters. This is a process vote. This is not a bully tactic. This is an extended debate about an issue and a process, which I think we should have. Now, I've seen bills die because of process, just last week. What I would hate to happen here is the motion to recommit fails, and then you don't have 25 affirmation votes, because per our rule, then he's off. It's considered a no vote. It's done. And maybe you have 25, and maybe you want to roll the dice instead of just taking a week to make sure he can sail through. But we better hope that his private Facebook doesn't have anything. We better hope more things don't come out, because everybody's warned. This is not a threat. It's a warning, as Cardi B says. We have got to do better of how we vet. And I asked you on the first couple of people, Senator Groney, Chairman Groney, did you vet? And your answer was no. We get appointments from the governor, people didn't show up, there were no supporters, there were no opponents, there were no neutrals, and we voted them out. You said on the mic you don't vet. And I'm saying when an issue arises, you have to deal with it. That is the nature of where we are in society, especially when the governor had somebody just get called out and had to fire him because there was some racist posts. We don't know everybody's background. I'm not spending time digging through everybody's background. But if I have to vote on them, I kind of want to know what they think. I kind of want to know how they operate on the board. Because my vote sends a notion of trust from my community and me, saying we are
1 minute.
We are saying that this person should be on this board to lead our 3 colleges. I'm saying we should hold up on that vote, have the committee ask some questions that are in the record to make sure we're all comfortable with this vote. And again, this vote may say you have 25 or more, but it also may show a divided legislature when it comes to this person being appointed. And the simple thing to do to get 48-0 or more is to just delay it for a week, recommit it, and take care of it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. The question is whether the motion to recommit to the Education Committee the confirmation report of Robert Ingalls should be adopted. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. The request to place the call in House. There has been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
21 ayes, 5 nays to place the House under call.
The House is under call. Senators, please record your presence. Those unexcused senators outside the chamber, please return to the chamber and record your presence. All unauthorized personnel, please leave the floor. The House is under call. Senator Bowles, please check in. Senator Wayne, we're missing Senator Vargas. Would you like to proceed or wait? All members are accounted for. The question before the body is whether the motion to recommit to the Education Committee the confirmation report of Robert Engel should be adopted. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Senator Wayne, would you accept call-in votes? A roll call vote in reverse order has been requested. Mr. Clerk?
Senator Wishart, voting yes. Senator Williams, voting no. Senator Wayne, voting yes. Senator Walls, voting yes. Senator Vargas, voting yes. Senator Stinner, voting no. Senator Slama, voting no. Senator Scheer, voting no. Senator Quick, voting no. Senator Pansing Brooks, not voting. Senator Merman, voting no. Senator Moser, voting no. Senator Morfeld, voting yes. Senator McDonald, voting yes. Senator McAllister, voting no. Senator Lowe, voting no. Senator Linehan, Senator Lindstrom, voting no. Senator Lathrop, voting yes. Senator LaGrone, voting no. Senator Coulterman, voting no. Senator Kalowski, voting yes. Senator Hunt, voting yes. Senator Hughes, voting no. Senator Howard, voting yes. Senator Hickelman, voting no. Senator Hilgers, voting no. Senator Matt Hansen, not voting. Senator Ben Hansen, voting no. Senator Holleran, voting no. Senator Groney, voting no. Senator Gregert, voting no. Senator Geist, voting no. Senator Friesen, voting no. Senator Erdman, voting no. Senator Dorn, voting no. Senator Dorn, no, thank you. Senator DeBoer, voting yes. Senator Crawford, not voting. Senator Clements, voting no. Senator Chambers, voting yes. Senator Kavanaugh, voting yes. Senator Breesy, voting no. Senator Brewer, voting no. Senator Brandt, voting no. Senator Bostelman, not voting. Senator Bowles, voting yes. Senator Blood, voting yes. Senator Arch, voting no. Senator Albright, voting no. Senator Pansing Brooks, changing to House Senator, yes. Voting yes, thank you. Senator Pansing Brooks voting yes. Senator Quick? Senator Quick changing from no to yes. 17 ayes, 28 nays on the motion to recommit.
The motion is not adopted. Debate is now open on the adoption of the confirmation. I raise the call. Debate is now open on the adoption of the confirmation report. Senator Wayne, you are recognized.
Thank you. So specifically, a quote that was shared was, if you want to ask about socialism, go talk to the Native American Indian. I don't know about you, but I find that kind of offensive. To compare black on black crime to Ferguson, I find that kind of offensive. Now, there's two things I can do right here. I didn't file a motion to reconsider. I'm not going to ask for time. But based on that vote count, I could take this to 3 hours and you'd have to show 33 and you can't get there. But I'm not going to do that. But when something comes up about process, when somebody allows these comments to go unchecked in my community, we are walking down a very dangerous path. We are walking down a very dangerous path, and this is not bullying. This is about an individual who is willing to charge the mountain alone for his community. And it's not really alone, because Senator Chambers is there and some other folks that I see around here who are supporting the idea of North Omaha being different in the next 10 years. And it might have been a philosophical question, Senator Groney, about black on black crime versus Ferguson, which I must remind you, a cop shooting an unarmed black man is nowhere comparable. But we don't know the answer to that philosophical question if he asked a question, and I don't think it necessarily was a question. But we're going to vote on it today. That's what this body says. We're going to vote. We're going to vote again, saying that these comments don't matter, that we won't take time to vet. And I find that very disheartening, that anybody appointed to a board can't answer a question about a quote that he shared and he believed regarding American Indians. And he used the word American Indians, not me. And it was an old Henry Ford quote. But he shared it, and I want to know if he really believes that or not. I want to know if he really believes that shooting an unarmed black man with his hands up is the same as black-on-black crime. I want to know that answer, but I won't get to know that answer. So we're going to vote on it. And if anybody in this body can conceivably say that shooting an unarmed black man, a police officer shooting an unarmed black man, is the same as black-on-black crime, even if it was a question, a philosophical debate, the fact that that wasn't asked sends the wrong message, at least to my school district and the kids in my community, sends the wrong message to the kids at Peru State, Chadron, and Wayne State. That the day of so much division among Black Lives Matter and MAGA and all these other things, that a person puts that on a Facebook page and we don't take time to ask, we don't take time to ask. We can't delay a vote for a week. We can't delay a vote for a week for the young kids that I represent, many of you other represent, who may have been pulled over, who may have that same fear, because many of you don't get to have that conversation. Now I push my button because I want to have a conversation about this. This is extended debate. And I'm going to wait to tell my story when I got pulled over with 6 kids in my car and we were at gunpoint. 6 sixth graders in my car. When we were at gunpoint. And then we had to have a conversation about how to interact with police. How many other legislatures in your community have to have that conversation with young men about how to interact with police? It's safe to say most of us don't. But that statement means a lot to my community, and we won't get a chance to ask that question. And I believe he'll answer it, and I believe he'll provide a great answer. But we won't get a chance to answer that. This isn't about TIF, Senator Groney.
Time, Senator. Thank you, Senator Wayne. Senator Chambers, you are recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the legislature, 24 years. Senator Wayne is going to learn why I do everything that I do the way I do it. He's the young generation. He's read where white people have changed, how far America has come. I've been here 82 years. This is my 82nd year. I'll be 82 July 10th. After July 10th, I'll be in my 83rd year, and I'll say I'm 83. I know white people don't change. This legislature hasn't changed. They don't care about what happens to black people. And you can try to be nice like Senator Wayne has tried to use reasoning, and it gets you nowhere. So I like to make a record so people will know that a black man told them the truth, and despite that, they did their racist things anyway. But then I remind them that old man Kennedy told his sons, don't get mad, get even. I learned from white people. I learned from successful white people. One of his sons became President of the United States. Another one became the Attorney General of the United States. He's a person that I'll look at. But he's also one of those who did not want to trade trucks for Jews. Adolf Eichmann and Hitler said, y'all make a lot of trucks in America. You don't like what we're doing to the Jews? Give us a truck and we'll give you so many Jews. An old man, Kennedy, Joseph, an ambassador said, you must be out of your mind. Y'all didn't know that, did you? You love the Kennedys. Your little towns. They say what we say and sit down. Well, you can because you're all the same. It's a fight for me all the days of my life. But unlike a lot of people, I don't get discouraged. I don't get disheartened. I don't quit. I'll stand alone as I have for 40 some odd years. And these white people cannot last 2 or 3 days without having to leave the chamber and maybe go get some counseling, because they heard a black man say he resents the fact that we were held as slaves and the carryover from slavery is still here and manifested on the floor of this legislature. You all stick together. I know you do. And you're going to stick together on this. What difference does it make to you if the man said something racist? You don't think it's racist because he said what you say. He said in words what you think. You all wish you could do something to me. You wish you could intimidate me. You wish you could threaten me and I'd be quiet. You threaten me and you'll make me do like a fire-eating dragon, breathing dragon will do if you pour gasoline on him. The fire is hotter and more intense. I'm not going anywhere. And yeah, that flag's a rag. The man that Senator Wayne was talking about loves the flag. The committee that sent him out here loves the flag. And he said what he said, and they love that. And all of that is done under the aegis of the flag. And I'm supposed to love it? You must be crazy. But you're not crazy. You're crazy like a fox. You think that you can tell me I have no right to be offended at what happened to black people, and I'm supposed to swallow it. And when I don't swallow it, I'm the one who is the racist. That's the crazy stuff you talk. Child psychology doesn't even work on children. I'm going to talk and talk and talk about the part of this American history that you don't want to hear.
1 minute.
I am your history. Senator B. Hansen is not your history. He's not a slaveholder. I'm still, figuratively and generally, based on the law's impact, clanking around here in the chains of slavery, psychological, intellectual, economic, sociological, all of them, in the courts, everywhere. You all are not surprised when you see that a black man unarmed was shot because somebody thought when he was running from them and he had a telephone that was a gun. They lied and said he got in a defensive or offensive shooting posture, and that's not what the film showed. But they forget about that. It doesn't matter. He's black. That's the way y'all treat us. And you get away with it. And you think I'm going to be cowardly and not say something about it? And you all get mad because you got to pay some property tax. You wait till we get your property tax bills. I cannot wait.
Time, Senator.
But I've got to wait.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Senator Kavanaugh, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today in support of Senator Wayne's comments and for highlighting this very important issue about a nomination. As a freshman senator, it's hard to know what the vetting process is. In my own committee, we have a particular vetting process for gubernatorial nominations, and I appreciate Senator Wayne's vigilant eye when it comes to the Education Committee and this particular nominee who I am not familiar with. I would like to share a story of a friend in the Omaha area that I feel is pertinent to this conversation today. Last year, there were students, they were, I believe, junior high and high school students that were doing track practice at a North Omaha track field. And they were just there after school with one of the parents who was also the track coach, running their exercises and doing their track relays. And the police showed up. And they rounded up all of the children, I'm talking like 10-year-olds to 17-year-olds, rounded them all up at gunpoint, and the parents, trying to find some teenagers who had stolen a car. These kids were African American. The children who stole the teenagers who stole the car were African American. My friend's child was accused of being one of these children. He suffered severely from this, from having a grown-up who should be there to protect him, pointing a gun at him and accusing him of a crime when his father is standing right next to him as his track coach. And his father can't do anything because he's afraid that if he does, the police will shoot him, and the police will shoot his child, and the police will shoot other children. This happened in Omaha, Nebraska in 2018. Nobody cared. The news didn't care. The police didn't care. Nobody cared that this happened in 2018 to a group of children engaging in an after-school activity, being rounded up by the police at gunpoint. What 10-year-old needs to have a gun pointed at them? And of course, these children were black, so nobody cared. And I'm very sorry for those children, and I'm very sorry that I continue to hear Senator Chambers rise and say that he stands alone, because he has stood alone for so long in this body. And I don't presume to speak for him, but I hope that he feels that he's not entirely alone in this body, that there are those of us that even though we will never know your experience, we will never know your life, we are here to support you. We are here to support that there is prejudice, there is systemic racism that still exists in this country, in this state, and in this body. And to not discuss it is to do a disservice to everyone. Our children deserve for us to address systemic racism in a real and thoughtful way. And I appreciate Senator Wayne bringing up our attention to Mr. Ingalls so that we can have this conversation about systemic racism and what we as a body can do to be thoughtful about it. And I hope that we can have a more robust conversation about our gubernatorial appointments. I think that we have some really great candidates. And as we did this morning, I stood up and spoke about one of them. And I just hope that we can continue to have these thoughtful conversations and be respectful and acknowledge that systemic racism is a real thing. And if we want to eliminate it, we need to start disrupting the system. So thank you, Senator Wayne.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Wayne, you are recognized.
Thank you, colleagues. I was elected to the Learning Committee in 2010. I was driving in a raggedy blue van with 6 basketball players. 'Cause let me tell you why this is important and why this isn't about tiff, this isn't about tick for tack. It's about something that's real in my community that we experience every day. We were stopped because a taillight was out, 30th and Sprague. Cop comes up to me and says, "Your taillight's out." I said, "It can't be. I just got out the shop and I had it specifically in for a taillight." He said, "No, it's out." His partner, the second cruiser, pulls up. The other cruiser gets out and says, "Yeah, it's out." I was like, "Well, can I look at it? Maybe it's just flicking, maybe it's whatever." He said, "Yeah, step on out." So I step out. Wait, let me back up, tell you how. No, that's right. I step out. I have a gun immediately drawn on me. He says and yells, "Stop moving, put your hands up." So at this point, I'm a little pissed. So I say, how can I stop moving and put my hands up at the same time? I have to move to put my hands up. Which one? He says, "Stop moving." So I left my hands on the side. At that time, my basketball players, who I had 6th graders, were moving in the car. And another individual, the second patrol, pulled a gun out on them in the van and said, "Stop moving." And I said, "There's 6th graders. They have no idea what's going on." "Well, they'll know what's going on," he replied, "when there's a bullet fired. Luckily, a third cruiser pulled up who I actually knew. And I knew him because I grew up with him. And they knew who was in the car because the van would register to me. They knew who I was. That didn't matter because it was a dark night. And it was 6 African-American children and African-American male. The sergeant got out and said, "Lower your weapon immediately," to both of them. They still fought with their sergeant to pull every 6th grader out of the car because they had gym bags. Had I not known that other sergeant, I wouldn't be standing here today. Because when you see a 6th grader in tears, it takes all restraint not to go after somebody. So later on that day, we go to practice at 6:30. And I have a very diverse, we used to brag about the diversity on our team. We had VPs of Fortune 500 companies to kids who were on poverty and poverty 100%, 200% below poverty. But we canceled practice and had a big meeting with 40 young males. And we had to walk through how to interact with police, how to have a conversation, how the fact that if you have a cell phone in your pocket, you don't touch it. Because the person around the street from my house growing up was murdered because he had a cell phone and they thought it was a gun. Marvin Ammons. See, I remember names because it's that ingrained in our fabric of dealing with police. And we've done a lot to mend those bridges since 2010. But what you just heard about in 2018, that's been talked about for the last couple months. It still happens. And what I saw from this body today was some of the hardcore issues and prejudices and things that we have to overcome in North Omaha can't be delayed for a week to have a conversation. We can't delay it a week to make sure everything's okay. This body took that. That isn't a message about felon voting rights. That's a message about appointing somebody today who had a comment. And you expect me not to take it personal. You expect me to rise above everything and say, we'll just keep moving. But you expect me to vote green and not speak 4 more times and hold up this process for the good. I may lose political capital in this. I may lose relationships over this. But there are issues in my community I'm willing to stand alone. This is one of them. Economic development is one of them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Wayne. Senator Brewer, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. The issue that Senator Wayne is addressing needs addressed, and I guess this is the forum we decided to do it. The comments that were made about Henry Ford's post, I went back and looked at, because if we're going to start weighing and determining people's worthiness over comments they post, then we probably should at least take a hard look at them. And I'll take a quick chance to read his comments. Any man who thinks that he can be happy and prosperous by letting the government take care of them had better take a closer look at the American Indian and the reservation. I'm not sure why anyone's very offended by that. If you lived around or grew up on an Indian reservation, you'd understand that if you wanted health care, the Indian Health Services is one of the most broken systems anywhere. I, not too long ago, took my mother to see a physician there, and it was a 2-day process. And then it was another 2-day process to get the meds. So if you take a quick look at that microcosm of socialism, what you got is a system that you stand in line to get your commodities. You are given a subsistence of just enough to maintain life, and you're given no opportunities within the confines of that reservation to probably have much of a life unless you work for the federal government. So if someone's offended by that, I would ask you to just understand the ground truth of what happens on an Indian reservation. It is not a very pleasant story, but it is the system that we have set up, and it probably will never be broken because the mindset and the system that exists there is probably going to be impossible to ever change in the future. But back to the issue at hand here, the individual that withdrew his nomination to that Emergency Response Commission did that because the fear was that this body, in that open forum where they can accuse and direct whatever passion of the moment they have towards someone, could result in them losing their full-time job over this volunteer position they want. And you can say, so big deal. But what we will do is either have empty commissions or we'll have them filled with people who are not qualified, who are empty suits. And why is that important? Well, this commission that we addressed in the government committee determines decisions that will either have positive consequences in disasters or negative ones. So human lives can be at stake here. So again, I understand the emotion of the moment, how easy it is to damn things, but understand this process is not perfect. We can tweak it and make it better, but the idea of having these commissions and being able to do this is invaluable to the overall body. With that, I would like to yield the rest of my time to Senator Slama.
Senator Slama, 1 minute, 14 seconds.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I've reached out to the nominee, and he's now released a public statement, and I'd like to share it here. I strongly support the work of the Nebraska State College system at our 3 campuses in Chadron, Peru, and Wayne, Nebraska. I welcome the opportunity to help promote the educational goals of all students, regardless of race, creed, and national origin. All students are welcome in our schools with open arms. I also like to reiterate that Bob Ingalls was the mayor of Auburn for 8 years, school board member before that for 12, and has served on the State College Board of Trustees since 2011 and was reappointed in 2012. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Slama and Senator Brewer. Senator Chambers, you are recognized.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the legislature, we're a legislature. Those statements should be made at the hearing and not sent to us through a woman. That's what happens around here. Senator Kavanaugh, Senator Wayne told you all some things. I could tell you about things that happened to me personally during the years that I've lived. And you'd wonder why I'm saying why I didn't go get a gun and shoot up the police station. But see, there were cops who told me things that happened in the police station because they were disgusted and they knew that I'd do something about it. And I brought about changes in the police station because white cops trusted me, but they were afraid to say anything. They were afraid and they hid behind me. And that's how I got the reputation for being one who foments violence, hates the cops. I hate what cops do. And I'm offended that other cops who see them doing it won't arrest them as they should. I'm not going to pussyfoot for anybody, and nobody's going to send a message to this legislature through me. I'd say, you do it. You tell them. And they hide behind a woman's skirts. That's what the governor does. The governor first threw a rock at me before he was even the governor. And he did it at a hearing, a meeting they had, and Kayor was there. She called him a man of faith. He talked about how he was going to build, at that time his word was grow. And I've handed around the article. He's going to grow a coalition to handle Senator Chambers. He's a smart man, but he's just one man. And here's a guy who's not even governor, and he's talking about growing a coalition to stop me, and I'm not supposed to be offended? You think I'm like you? That I'm going to fold up and blow away like a dry leaf in the wind because I'm a coward like you white men sitting here? The governor can intimidate you. Let him try. Let him send somebody to do it. They make their anonymous calls and curse out the woman in my office. They can find me. I'm down here every day. Come see me. I don't ask these troopers to do anything for me. And I'm not condemning them. They're not here to protect me. They're here to protect you all, you cowards. Then you're going to stand up and alibi for some white man. You can do it, and you will do it, and you'll vote for this man. I know you, and you've done it all the years I've been here, and I'm not going to change. I'm not going to become like you. I know what poor people, and you don't hear me just talk about black people. Let me read you something. She signed it, but I won't give her name. Senator Chambers, I'm a farmer's wife. Thank you for serving Nebraska as a state senator. God bless. And she signed. And some of these kind of people leave messages on my phone at home. Some of them call and apologize to Cindy about what their fellow Christians say. Let the Christian come and confront me and my officer on the street and say to me what he said to her, hiding behind a woman. Do I think I'm tough? No. I might can't lick my lips. I'm 82 years old. But I'll do the best I can for as long as I can. I'm not going to run from anybody, and I'm not going to take low for anybody. And I'm not going to apologize for the things that I say and what I believe. You don't hear me attacking private citizens like Senator Erdman attacked some professors, and now he's being sued, which is what ought to happen. You guys are tough and bold when you've got things your way. When you can fly thousands of feet in there and drop bombs on people who are not white, you feel good. But in Vietnam, they brought you down on the ground, didn't they? 1 minute. You had to come down on the ground, and you met somebody who had maybe a knife, maybe a Garrett. But when the sun went down, then as Malcolm X said, it was even Steven. And you all didn't do so well. So you brought Agent Orange. You decimated villages. Lieutenant Calley murdered those people. And he wound up being forgiven by the then president. That's what white people have done all over the world, wherever they've gone. And I'm going to come to this place where there are tools here, and I'm not going to use them to the full. If I can't use them, I'm going to hinder you from using them to oppress people even more. And I speak for your kind, not just my kind. I spent a lot of years to save a white man from being executed. And because I was successful for decades, your Chief Justice changed the court rules. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Colleagues, per the direction of the Speaker, after recess, we will come back to this agenda item. Those who are currently in the queue, we will keep the queue intact in this speaking order. You will be in the queue so long as you don't turn your life off in the meantime. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Thank you, Mr. President. Enrollment and Review reports LB 87, a select file with ENR amendments attached. Health Committee chaired by Senator Howard reports 135, 347, and 541 to general file. I have a series of resolutions. Senator Coulterman 65 and 66. Senator Walls LR 67, 68, 69, LR 70, 71. Senator McDonald LR 72. Senator Crawford LR 7374. Senator Slama LR 75. Senator Stinner would like to put an amendment to LB 481. Senator DeBoer to 130. And I have a confirmation report from the Health and Human Services Committee. An announcement, Mr. President, the Appropriations Committee will meet in executive session at 12:30 in room 1003. Appropriations at 12:30 in their hearing room. And Mr. President, motion to recess. Senator Friesen will move to recess the body until 1:30 p.m.
Colleagues, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. We are in recess.